Hello and welcome to the very first edition of our daily Davos bulletin that we are bringing to you right here from Davos. Moneycontrol is back for the 54th edition of the World Economic Forum. It's a freezing, cold, wintry morning here in Davos, and the world economic outlook is not looking that great as well. In fact, the World Economic Forum has just released the latest chief economist's outlook today. And according to that, the global economic prospects remain subdued due to a number of factors. So some of these headwinds include tight financial conditions, geopolitical rifts, and rapid advances in generative artificial intelligence or GenAI. In fact, more than half of chief economists expect the global economy to weaken in 2024, with 7 in 10 saying the pace of geo-economic fragmentation will accelerate. Two-thirds have said industrial policies will create new growth hotspots, but the majority warns of rising fiscal strains and divergence between higher and lower income economies. Now, generative AI is seen to increase productivity and innovation, but they are more optimistic about this happening for high-income countries. So these are some of the highlights. Now, amidst that uncertainty and gloom, there is a bright spot and no surprises there. It is South Asia. So WEF has said that the outlook for South Asia and East Asia and Pacific remains positive and broadly unchanged compared to the last survey. And China, though, is an exception, with a smaller majority expecting moderate growth as weak consumption, lower industrial production and property market concerns weigh on the prospects of a stronger rebound. So those were the highlights of the economists' outlook here at the World Economic Forum. I guess India will continue to be a bright spot because it is one of the fastest growing economies in the world, a trend that's expected to continue in 2024. Now, with that overall view of what's happening as far as global macros are concerned, let's kick off our coverage here at Moneycontrol with some leading global voices. We kick it off with this exclusive interview with AI pioneer Andrew Ng, who is, remember, the co-founder of Google Brain, the founder of Coursera, and Jeff Maggioncalda, the CEO of Coursera. Both of them spoke a lot about the impact of AI for societal good, AI regulations, and how AI can be a game changer in education. Listen in. So, do you believe LLMs are close to being used for defense purposes, and how can that be prevented?
I think none of us want to ever see AI used to wage an unjust war. And with what's happened with Russia's attack on Ukraine, I feel like there are unfortunate things already being done with even older generations of AI technologies. I like the fact that I live in democracy, and part of me, I'm grateful to the people standing up to protect democratic nations and to stand up for values that hopefully can make everyone on the planet better off. No one wants war, and I feel like there is a important need to protect certain values, and unfortunately sometimes it takes the military to do that. Every time there's a major tech disruption, like we just saw with generative AI, I think it gives every nation a shot at playing an even bigger role than it has before. India has always had a very strong tech, IT, software ecosystem. And with that strong base, I think that India is actually in a very good position to quickly embrace the new skills that Jeff was talking about, certainly in tech, but also more broadly, and then to play a huge role in the generative AI world.
We were just with the head of HR from L&T, the ones who built the Delhi airport, and they're rolling out Coursera's Generative AI Academy.
From the world of AI to a person who is a guru in the advertising world, we're talking about Sir Martin Sorrell of S4 Capital. We caught up with him to understand a little bit about India's position in the world, the impact of AI on advertising and creativity as we know it. Let's listen in. Sir Martin, WEF has just released a survey of their economists. More than half of them are pessimistic about the world this year.
Yeah, only means we should be optimistic.
The opposite is often
The
true.
opposite is probably true. Yes.
But what is-
That's the Davos lesson. Yeah.
But what's your sense of 2024 and what's your sense of India? Because you've been an India bull for a very long time.
Be pessimistic on the world, maybe optimistic on India.
That's a great headline.
To be simple, yeah. Well, we've got an election in India. I think probably Modi will be re-elected, and I think that's good for India and probably good for the world. It's somewhat controversial for some people, but having said that, he's the ultimate master on branding and branding countries, and I think he's done a superb job on positioning India. And if you look at GDP growth in India last year and the projections for this year, they embarrass a number of other countries. I think the G7 is now being eclipsed by the E7, and if you nix out the US and China and have an E6 and a G6, the E6 is still bigger than the G6. So these fast-growing countries are not emerging; they've emerged. So in the context of Asia, obviously with the geopolitical issues around US and China, around Russia and Ukraine, and Iran, and the terrible conflict in the Middle East, given all that, I think, particularly in relation to the first, India is the go-to market as an alternative to China in Asia. So India is very well positioned, very strong growth, and by 2050, India will be the third largest economy in the world, already the most populous country on the planet. So I remain a raging bull.
We continue to get some of the world's best voices on AI on Money Control, and our next speaker on the show is Kathy Lee, who leads AI data and metaverse for the World Economic Forum. She spoke to us about the impact of AI on jobs and why AI is going to offer a sea of opportunities for India. Let's listen in. How is AI going to impact jobs? Is there a way of creating new kinds of jobs without displacing existing jobs? Is that going to be a key focus as well in all of your discussions, apart from the governance framework and responsible AI development?
AI is not the first technology that disrupt labor market. On one hand, we do need to look at how do we protect the labor market, especially at the country level, what kind of jobs and roles that can be created based on, the principle that the technology should be complementing what humans are doing rather than replacing it. It's still difficult to tell if AI is a sustaining innovation or disrupting innovation. Why I say that is some technologies tend to enhance the incumbent's strengths, while others actually pose, truly disruptive, kind of a potential to the existing landscape. There's a sea of opportunities that countries such as India can truly leverage. So I do believe that it's still too early to say. Like even a year ago, we didn't even realize this will happen. Even with AI being studied for, I think, seven decades by now.
That's right. Now, you heard out a lot of global voices, but what about India Inc. at Davos? Well, we bring you this interview with Niranjan Gupta, the CEO of Hero Motorcorp, on the two-wheelers prospects, EV transition, and their investments plans going forward. Let's listen in. The WEF Economist Outlook has just given a rather pessimistic outlook. They're saying that global growth is likely to weaken. There is a lot of uncertainty. But if you look at Moneycontrol CEO survey that we carried out, 98% of them are actually bullish. So what sentiments are you picking up as one of India's largest automakers?
I am part of the 98%, and you can add me to those numbers in case I'm not part of the survey. I'm very bullish, and we are very bullish as a company. First, let's talk about global that we are talking about. Yes, there are countries, there are geopolitical issues that are happening. But remember, the globe has gone through a big, massive pandemic called COVID. Yeah. And then, of course, a huge thing of inflation. So I think the two big things, and you can see central banks across the world have been able to kind of tame it to a level. And back home, as far as India is concerned, the story is extremely positive. So I think overall, if you look at it, I would say there are more upsides than downsides moving forward as far as globe is concerned. Some countries will take time to come out of that. And as far as India and some other countries are concerned, it's a very positive next few years, next decade.
Now, in the last few weeks, you've seen how IT companies have reported a decline in headcount. They've also spoken about the impact of generative AI, how they are harnessing it for businesses. Are the two interlinked? Are we seeing a seminal change in Indian IT? To answer that question, we caught up with Noshir Kaka, senior partner at McKinsey. He also co-leads McKinsey's telecom, media and technology practice globally. Let's listen in. If you look at IT firms, they are talking about generative AI and proof of concepts that they are doing. But, we are also seeing many quarters of decline in headcount. So, again, is this an indicator of weak demand forecasting, or has something fundamentally changed, the link between hiring and demand, which has always been there these decades?
I think they're two different questions. So firstly, I think on the outsourcing industry in general, we saw a halving of the growth rate last year in 2023. Most expectations is that this year will continue to be mixed, right? We don't know what the growth rate is, but some people forecasted between 4 and 8%, and then a rebound in 2025. And I think if you looked at the hiring pattern of most of these firms into 2023, so 22 into 2023, I think most of them would say we hired a lot of people, right? And so I think the decline you're seeing is just essentially catching up, supply catching up with where demand is. On generative AI, I think it is way too early to actually say that that's starting to affect the headcount. But I do think if you think forward, I have kind of 4 simple numbers on generative AI. When it comes to the tech services industry, it's 20, 30, 40, 80. 20% is the expansion in your TAM, the target addressable market, right? So we think there's actually new service lines, new opportunities. For example, you could never ever do a one-on-one personalized advertisement in the past, which you could do now. You can actually have GenAI to actually convert an ad and produce it. You need tech for that, right? So there's an expansion of what we could do by 20%. There's absolutely a 30% productivity opportunity on the table. We're going to see that. It's going to play out. We're seeing a 40% opportunity in G&A. Everything you did on the support functions, you could do it far more effectively. And finally, the reason that all these firms are going to actually move headlong into GenAI is there's an 80 to 100% increase in developer satisfaction. So actually what the firms will actually eventually, the first movers on this will reap massive advantages, of course on growth, of course on efficiency, but most importantly on your talent, because that's where good talent wants to go.
With those voices then, it's a wrap on this edition of Moneycontrol at Davos 2024. But we are going to bring you this bulletin every single evening at 7 p.m. So make sure you tune in to listen to a bevy of global and Indian voices on the topics that matter, from geopolitics to economy, to jobs, to AI. We sign off then with some visuals of the India presence on the Davos promenade, a look at Indian IT companies, as well as state pavilions from Uttar Pradesh to Telangana to Tamil Nadu to Karnataka to Maharashtra. Here's a look.